It is season 1, episode 3 of the Classic Sports Review Show, and we have got a great one. My guest today, well, first I'll introduce myself, Kirk Buchner, owner, operator of NotHallOfFame.com and the sister sites, Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame, shameless plug, Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, another shameless plug, and the United States Athletic Hall of Fame, of which I've got two of our co-founders with us here. Buffalo's greatest triathlete, Glenn Paslawski. I noticed
Hello, how are we all doing today?
Notice I didn't put an S on it.
we're getting the Polish name correct. By season 2, we'll have it all down.
For sure. And someone who didn't participate in this game, but certainly knows the Buffalo Bills very, very well. 7-time Pro Bowler and member of the Dolphins honor roll, Richmond Webb. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Kirk, Glenn, how you guys doing today? Glad to be on the show with you.
Awesome.
It's our pleasure. You'll have to excuse myself. I'm going to fanboy out because there's going to be a lot of questions I'm probably going to ask you during this review, just a little bit of inside intel that I wouldn't necessarily know since I'm 5'7" and not built like a brick shit house, but just the shit.
You had that written down for a while, didn't you?
Well, if you've got to be a host of a show, you've got to come up with a bunch of lame jokes, and self-deprecating humor is my go-to.
You're very good at it.
Thank you. And so we're going to look at something, and as you can tell the way Glenn is dressed, it's a Buffalo Bills thing. The greatest moment in Bills history, and maybe one of the greatest moments in all of playoff history, not just football. It is, when you think of comebacks, you have to look at Buffalo's comeback against Houston Oilers in the Wildcard round of the 92 playoffs. I mentioned this to Glenn before, and I just was talking to Richmond off air about that. I never saw this game. I was driving back from college, going from home to Ottawa, and it was a 5-hour drive that in the snow took about 8 hours. So I listened to the first half, and I thought this game was over. Got home, talked to my roommate, who was a Bills fan, said, first thing I opened up the door, said, dude, sorry about your loss. He says, we didn't lose. And I said, you're lying. You're lying to me. And back then, there was no internet, so I had to wait until Sports Center at 10 o'clock to see if he was telling me the truth.
Yeah, I remember when you first approached me about this show. I'm like, great. I'll talk to someone who really had no real skin in the game, just get that outsider perspective as to what is actually going on in front of them and what their reaction was. And then you tell me, yeah, Glenn, I didn't see it. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then I guess we'll have to go a different route on this show.
Which we did.
Yes, we did.
We did. So Richmond, you must have been watching this because Miami had a bye into that. So did you care who you were going to play? Were you just thinking about next week at that point, San Diego?
Well, I think that the good thing was that we did have a bye, and but the Bills already had kind of established a dynasty from my rookie year on, so we knew who they were. Houston was playing some really good football, and of course they had a Hall of Fame quarterback, Warren Moon. So just sit back and watch the game. I don't think we were going to face either team, no matter who won. But it was a great, kind of lopsided at first. Oilers kind of jumped out early on, and I was like, man, this game is over. And then next thing I know, Kelly gets hurt or whatever, and Frank Reich comes in, and next thing you know, the Bills are just chipping away at it. Next thing, come back and win the game. And I was sitting there like with my jaw dropped and like, man.
Mm-hmm.
You let this one get away. So been there, done that before. So it was good for Bills fans, but I know all the fans were probably like sick because it was like, to go on the road, play that well, then give it back. That was a tough one right there.
So the week before, Buffalo and Houston actually played each other. Houston took care of Buffalo handily. But in that game, most significantly, as you mentioned, Kelly got hurt. Thurman Thomas got hurt, but we wouldn't really know the degree until this game. And Cornelius Bennett was out. So this was, I don't want to say a decimated team, but certainly I think that is the right word, actually, decimated. Going into this, Frank Reich was that backup, but he'd been that backup, God, for forever. I don't even remember any big Frank Reich game leading up into this. Glenn, you'd probably
he made a mistake when he got in there. Yeah, it was just
No, up until I mean, Jim Kelly wasn't 100% healthy throughout his career. He had the knee problems. I want to say pretty much throughout his career. Frank Reich was drafted a couple of years before, or I think maybe a couple of years after, and he was set to be the starter because Kelly was still in the USFL.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute that folded and we got Kelly or signed Kelly, Frank was going to be the backup. And strangely enough, I mean, his career in Buffalo, he didn't have that many starts. I think he was 6-4 between regular season and playoffs, which isn't a bad record. But the thing about Reich was he wasn't the quarterback you want coming off the bench in the middle of a game. He was just not that guy. But if you give him a week of practice, a week of film study, he's going to come out and win you a game, which he did do. Up until that playoff game, he was 3-0 on games he started. So in Buffalo, I get your point, Kirk, where it seemed like a decimated team.
Mm-hmm.
But we knew what we had in Frank Reich.
So you weren't worried into it?
Go ahead.
You weren't worried at all? Like, you didn't have sort of like a lot of trepidation?
Well, again, if we go back to the week before, I mean, we were playing for something. I mean, we were going to – if we win that game, that's home field. That's the AFC East title. That's the bye week. And to the best of my knowledge, Houston wasn't playing for anything. They had locked up their wild card with, I think, the Denver loss earlier in the day, and which is another thing that's changed. I mean, an 8 o'clock Sunday night game at the end of the season where teams can just sit back and wait and see what's happening versus in this age where the last week is all rescheduled depending on what your playoff situation is, so people can't rest. And you will not know who you're playing in the playoffs until that 4 o'clock game goes off, and the NFL tries to set it up that way. Back in '92, it wasn't that way.
Where did you watch it?
The playoff game?
Yeah.
Okay, gather around, everyone, because way back when there was a blackout rule in the NFL.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with this. Yeah.
And the thing that always pissed me off about that was, yes, it was an NFL rule, but Congress had a say in that rule. And I don't know the specifics about it. Someone who's probably listening to this podcast can tweet any of us and elaborate on it. But yeah, if you didn't sell out the stadium, I think 72 hours prior to the game,
okay,
it was not going to be on local television.
Because it sure looked full to me.
Well, when you have a 75,000 seat stadium and you got to sell 75,000 seats and you come up 9,000 seats short on the Thursday before the game, you're not going to see that game on local TV.
Okay.
So yeah, back in the day, that was a scramble to where are you going to watch the game? Well, again, youngsters gather around because way back when satellite TV was around. But DirecTV was not your satellite provider. I mean, your DirecTV dish is about yay big. Well, if you had satellite TV back in the day, you had this 10-foot monstrosity on top of your house, and you had to direct it in the direction where the feed's coming from. So you would get the football game out of, I mean, if it was the game, probably in Maryland, you'd be getting the Maryland local NBC affiliate to watch that Bills game. Back in the day, we found a bowling alley called the Broadway Sports Center on Broadway in Cheektowaga that had a satellite dish on top of their roof. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we got there probably an hour. Me, my brother, mother, and father, we all went there watching this game in the bowling alley, staked out our claim in the booth. And ordered our pops, ordered our nachos and whatnot, sat there an hour before, and you'd see the whole bowling alley bar fill up to where by game time it was packed because everybody knew if you wanted to watch a blacked out game, you go to that place. There were several around town, but I guess the bowling alley was the more family friendly place where you could take a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old to watch a football game. But yeah, I mean, unless you were at the stadium or knew of places that were having the game on their satellite TV in the bar, you were shut out and had to listen to Van Miller on GR55.
No, yeah, because I'm glad you asked, or that I asked that because I saw that like they had 74,600, but I wasn't aware of that rule that it had to be sold out, or maybe I forgot by the Thursday.
You know, you probably forgot because I think they got rid of the blackout rule has been gone for several years now.
Which
but
is
yeah,
so archaic now thinking of that because God, everything is so available now. Even just like right from the kickoff, Houston wins the coin toss, and the first thing I think of is, well, usually you're going to defer because you always want to start off with the second. Back then, that's not how it was.
No, yeah.
And yeah, and so Houston waits no time. They announced I didn't really remember a lot of the Oilers because you were talking about TV rights. So I'd see the Bill. I growing up in Toronto. I'd see the Bills game, and then they would always sort of show NFC East. So like I grew up watching Cowboys, Giants, Redskins, Eagles. Always the same 4 teams battling it out, and occasionally they throw in the Cardinals for good measure.
Yeah, that's crazy who got what game. It was always amazed me.
So they announced the offense with Ward Moon, and then I did not remember this offense being this good with Haywood Jeffries, Ernest Givens, and my favorite name of all football, Webster Slaughter. How do you love the name? The last name Slaughter. I don't care what your first name is.
Well, it could be Webster because your last name's Slaughter.
Yeah. It's just the best name ever. Then of course announcing everything on the Houston defense, the Buffalo defense, and then all of these names I do remember from watching that. Nate Odoms, we're gonna be talking a lot about him today.
Yeah, he had a very nice play.
Yeah, well, they went from they were burying him at the start of this game to really building him up on NBC. I think that. I will say, if I never have to review another game called by Todd Christensen again, I think I'll be happy.
I was thinking, Charlie Jones. I liked Charlie Jones back in the day, but Christensen was just, a mundane, not necessarily monotone, but very, just really didn't seem into the game, I guess is the best way I can put it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I always enjoyed Charlie Jones.
So Houston marches down the field. I want to say relatively easy. Wide receivers are just looking incredible. And it wasn't. I thought that it wasn't so much that Buffalo was losing badly on coverage. They were just being out physically played by that. Like on the first series. Any comments on that as Houston runs down, goes up 7-0 pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, the run and shoot back in the day, you could go up and down the field, and just the fact that Warren Moon was so sharp. And I totally forgot that he missed 5 games leading up to the season finale where Cody Carlson guided that team for the last part of the season.
There's a name I haven't.
Oh, I know. It was just a flashback. I totally forgot about that. But the fact that he only had a quarter in the final and then comes out and just is lights out. Richmond, how hard is that to just come from being off for 5 weeks with an injury, getting only 1 quarter in the season finale, and then doing what Warren did in the first half of that game?
Yeah, that's the thing, and I kind of reflected back where you were talking about, even with Wright, when he had a week to, prepare for a game or whatever, and regardless of a lot of time the position, but especially the quarterback position, anybody that's played, if you're a backup, you get very few minimal reps during the week of practice. The starters, they basically get probably 90% of the reps. So all your reps as a backup is mental. So even for Frank to come in, even though he was a seasoned veteran, but to come in, to get the time and this and that, the way the routes run, the offense, but it's different when you get to go through all the throwing mechanics, hitting the receivers, this and that, for him to do that. But like you said, with Warren Moon to be out 5 weeks, and I remember Cody Carlson, he played at Baylor when I was at A&M. He was a couple of years older than me, but great quarterback in college. And then for Warren, like you said, just get a quarter, which isn't much. And it's last game of the season, so you don't know if this is what you're going to possibly see again. But to, be able to step up, get your time in this and that, and then go out and jump on the Bills the way that they did, that was really impressive.
The other thing, too, I forgot how loaded that Houston offensive line was. Munchak, Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
God, I think Munchak is nearing the end of his career at this point. But still, like they made it everything so much easier for Warren Moon. As we're looking at sort of the Bills defense, when they're going to come up, Richmond, who were you worried about most when you were knowing that you had to play Buffalo? You were playing them twice, so.
Yeah, you know, the thing for me, it was always Bruce Smith, but, you know, I think Buffalo's defense doesn't get a lot of credit as far as in the early 90s when he played. You know, they had Cornelius Bennett at one time, like you said, Nate Odoms, he was a Pro Bowl cornerback. You had Henry Thomas, Pro Bowl safety. You had Bryce Pop, trying to think of the other middle linebacker that was there. Phil Hansen was, you know, a guy came in with me, I think he's first round pick for the Bills that year.
Shane Conlon was there.
Who was that?
Shane Conlon.
Shane Conlon, that's what I was thinking about. Another Pro Bowl. So majority of the time when people talked about the Buffalo Bills, they always focused on the offense, the K-Gun. You know, you had Kelly, Thomas, Reed, Steve Tasker, James Lofton, those type of guys. And then you had Kent Hull, House Ballard. You know, they had a great offensive line, Reuben Brown. So they had guys like that up front. That's why I said they were just as equally as good on defense as were offense. They just didn't get the notoriety or the credit that the offense did. But when you had to play against those guys, you know, every year, twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, we knew what they were capable of. And that's why it was so hard for us to get by them. And we always came up a little short, but they had some great teams in the early 90s. Did
you always hate playing in the cold?
No, I actually like playing in Buffalo. The fans were rowdy, this and that. They didn't like the Dolphins, which was cool. It was always, you know, it was always a good matchup because, you know, we had Marino, they had Kelly, and, you know, they would be going back and forth, and then it seemed like they would always stop us or something, or we'd have to settle for a field goal or something, and then end up beating us by at least a touchdown or 10 points. Sometimes it could be rough in Buffalo, and, you know, they get to singing that song, Let's Go Buffalo, and the wave gets to going around, and it gets extremely loud in there. But if you can get on top and get it quiet, it's not bad. But the cold, it was cold up there, but I think if the games were close, I didn't really so much focus on the weather, but I always look forward to playing against Buffalo Bills.
Okay. So Buffalo takes the ball. A decent drive for them. Biggest play of this drive was, of course, Andre Reed. Thurman Thomas isn't really doing much, and we didn't really learn why until a little bit later, but leads to a Steve Christie field goal, so 7-3 Houston.
And just from a Buffalo standpoint, being the homer that I am, there was a James Lofton pass interference that wasn't called, that maybe should have been called, that could have continued the drive, but I'm not going to harp on that all these years later. I'm not bitter at all.
Well, you shouldn't. You know who won the game.
Well, the thing is, I mean, the funny thing, and you know, it's always fun watching classic games and that what you know the end to. Yeah. But I turn it on, and you know what? I'm into it. Like, I don't know what the score is. And I'm like, that should have been a flag. That's going to come back and bite us in the ass, knowing full well. I mean, I should know this game's going to end the way I want it to end. But just watching this with a tunnel vision, you just get into it. And, yeah, I mean, this was very enjoyable to watch again.
I should have got Jerry Gray to watch this back.
Yeah.
But we'll get to him later. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God, yeah. The football gods were smiling in Western New York. On that, but I'll get there. The next drive with Houston, it's all about Givens. Givens is just incredible on this drive. 22-yard pass. He's the go-to guy on this completely. White, who I haven't really talked about, the Houston running back. So they mentioned how this was his best year. Well, they didn't know it was going to be his best year, but over 1,200 yards. They said he never had a fumble. So I thought, wow, that's impressive. Wonder who holds the record for that most rushing yards without a fumble. Yeah, so White's not even close. It's Barry Sanders with 1,883.
Oh, wow. Well, that's why he's who he is.
That's just insane.
And you know what's funny? It seems like when guys have an extended record where say they caught a pass or a quarterback hadn't thrown an interception and so many and it seemed like the announcers will come up, bring up all these stats, and next 2 or 3 plays seem like something will happen, a tip ball, either the guy end up fumbling. I'd be like, man, whatever you do, if that's me, don't even mention anything about the streak. But it seems like it happens every time. It doesn't matter who it is. This guy hadn't thrown an interception in 6 games, 200 passes, and next 2 or 3 interception. I'm like, there you go. So, yeah.
And, Richmond, I'm right there with you. As I'm watching this game, my ears perked up when they mentioned Lorenzo Fike did not lose a fumble this season. I'm like, ooh, I better write that down because I can't remember if he lost a fumble later on in the game. I knew Houston turned it over a couple times. But I'm like, ooh, maybe they did jinx him, and we'll save that for later. But no, he didn't. I don't think he fumbled during that game.
No, and White was like really good. Yeah. He definitely did his job. I'm surprised that this was his only season where he got past 1,000 yards. He never got past 800 yards. So and
plus it was the offense that they played in with that run and shoot. They threw the ball extreme. He was a great running back. I remember when he was at Michigan State and had an opportunity to meet him, this and that. Great guy, but he was a really good running back. It was just the system that he was in to where, he wasn't going to get the lion's share of the carries or whatever. They were throwing the football there, and that's what it was. But he was good. Absolutely. Running back.
Yeah, it was the run and shoot. But one graphic they did put up revolving around Curtis Duncan, his 82 receptions and 950 some odd yards during that season was good for 2nd overall in the AFC, which is kind of unheard of today when you see the numbers that these receivers are just putting up both in the NFC and AFC. Just how far, and the run and shoot was a passing offense versus today's offense, which I guess is just pass first and worry about the run later when you need to.
Yeah, and like I say, they normally went 4 wide receivers majority of the time, and I guess the thing that's kind of misleading about that, well, all of the passes wasn't like 15, 20 yards down the field. A lot of them would be, quick passes to kind of keep the defense honest, this and that. So that is, like you said, if a guy doesn't hit 1,000 yards, you're not going to be second in the second leading in the NFL right now.
No, not anymore. Not anymore. Not at all.
Sometimes not even on your own team. So they're running this perfectly. Slaughter gets the touchdown. They mentioned also that he's got a broken hand. I'm like, how the hell are you doing that?
And did you see the tape job on his hand? I'm looking at that. How are you out there? Well, probably injections, some pharmaceuticals and whatnot. But yeah, that just a tape job, and that's all. And he's still out there.
I was always amazed whenever I'd see a lineman just with a club. Just like they'd have their broken hand and they would just like. So this is to you, Richmond. Like, how do you do? Like, I don't know if you ever had to do that, but I know you're not supposed to like grab anyway, but of course that's happening in almost every play. But have you ever had to do that where you've just got a club and essentially five digits?
Not so much the club. That'd probably be more defense. But for me, I had sprained my thumb, and they had to put like a soft cast on, and then you put this little cast. And so, if you get that thumb pulled back, that's pretty painful, and it doesn't just recover. So I had to wear that. Once you do it, you almost got to wear it from the time on you're playing because you stretch those ligaments out, and so you do that. But yeah, it's just they'll find a way to get you back out on the field. That's what they used to do back in the day.
I feel
it was definitely a difference in being hurt and being injured. So, but they could push the limits on that.
Buffalo's got the ball back.
Now this is for the second time they get it back?
Yeah, second time.
9 minutes left in the half, and they're getting the ball for the second time.
Yeah, which is, again, insane.
Woo!
My God.
And they go 3 and out. So this is just looking fabulous for the Buffalo Bills fan.
And right after, too, I thought to myself, I'm glad I sort of watched this recently as opposed to I was planning to watch this a few days ago. And I was just going to it might be fun to sort of like have a drinking game with myself. Every time the camera goes to Jim Kelly, I'm going to do a drink. And this was like the first time they really focused on Jim Kelly. Just a little bit frustrated because, of course, Frank Reich had a pass that went errant. So they're going right to Jim Kelly. But the relationship I always understood between, and Glenn, you might know more about this, between Kelly and Reich, apparently, they were the best of friends.
Oh, absolutely. I can't remember the restaurant down by the stadium, but yeah, every home games, Friday before the game, they'd go out there, just the two of them, talk the game, have their burgers and milkshakes, and yeah, just go over everything. And yeah, they were in lockstep with each other. I mean, I'm not going to say they shared the same brain, but it was pretty close to where they knew what was going on. And I mean, later on, you could see a lot of that in Frank, how he was the consummate coach, especially in Philadelphia, and now to a certain extent in Indianapolis and what he's doing. You could see that back in the late 80s, early 90s, where this guy's going to do something in the coaching realm.
I think the commentators even sort of described sort of how the two of them were different. Kelly sort of like runs on emotion, and Frank Reich's the analyst, the thinker. Yes. No shock which one of them was going to become the head coach down the road.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect combination, especially if you're a backup, because a lot of times you can see stuff from the sideline. So when Jim probably came, if you get together and you got a good relationship, not just during, but like you say, they would go eat on Fridays or whatever like that. Like, hey man, I'm noticing this, or the safety is playing this way or whatever. We probably can call this play that way. And two heads are better than one. But like you said, when you had that analytical type brain where you can analyze and you see stuff and you share it, and Jim knew exactly what he's talking about because the same offense. Okay. And then you get in touch with the offensive coordinator, whatever. Okay, let's plug it in. They'll work it in, and then that's how you have success, when you get everybody on the same page, and it's, no animosity or ill feelings toward each other. And I think that's why they had success. But that's always a great asset to have a player like that, that's a backup, just watches, hey, watch this, and that, and it worked well for him.
Definitely. Absolutely. And I mean, it was so obvious, but not at the time you're looking at it. But Reich at Maryland, he backed up Boomer Esiason. And then later on, I can't remember the name of the quarterback that he lost his job to at Maryland, and then came in relief to do the greatest Maryland comeback in history.
Yeah, they reference that later in the game too. Yeah.
But I mean, obviously Reich had confidence in himself, but it wasn't an overinflated ego. And that's probably another characteristic you need if you're going to be a permanent backup.
Yeah. So Houston marches down super quick. Duncan with a 26-yard reception, 21-3. And again, it's not that I didn't really think that the Buffalo secondary was playing bad. They were just being out-muscled.
No, you're right. And again, not to be a homer again, but I mean, Clifford Hicks got a holding call that, again, I thought was dubious.
It's all right.
Who am I to say anything? I mean, there's a possibility that they can come back in this game and win. It might not hurt them.
Mm-hmm. So Buffalo gets the ball back. It's not going too well. 2-minute warning. It looks like something.
Well, no, I'm going to contradict you on that. There was an ovation when they did get a first down.
Yeah. I was just gonna say it started off bad, and then Reed gets a 22-yard reception.
Yeah, I don't know whether that was a genuine ovation or we were doing the Bronx cheer back then. But
7-yard reception too, because it was 3rd and 22.
That's right.
But it just falters in Houston territory. Then there was a shot of somebody dressed like Captain America. I had in my notes, is this a young Glenn?
I'm trying to think. 1992. No, I think I was.
That's where you were. Just my own notes
at the time, and I don't think I was that tall or could fill out that uniform. So no, that was not a young Glenn.
It was not a young Glenn. Okay. So, young Glenn was not there holding a shield with the bit.
Young Glenn was at the bowling alley.
Okay. All right. Because those are the type of notes that I take.
Homework you do.
Oh yes. Houston gets the ball back, and yeah, that's after a holding penalty. Yeah, because they went for it on 4th and 4. It failed. Houston gets the ball with 1:15, and so they're thinking, okay, well, let's see if they can get another field goal, and they got a lot more than a field goal.
Yes, they did.
And then one part two here, I've just sort of looked at Warren Moon does sort of like a head fake and gets on a fourth.
Yeah, got him to jump.
Yeah, got him to jump, which I noticed too. Like that's something that you every time now, whenever we see a 4th and 1 on something that we don't really think they're going to go for it, the commentators, I mean, the fans are all thinking, okay, they're out there just hoping for a jump. Commentators didn't pick up on that once.
There's a lot that the commentators didn't pick up on. And I don't know if you listened to the Van Miller link that I sent to you.
I didn't have time to yet. I'm going to after though.
We'll get to, I mean, it addresses some of the second half stuff where if you're listening to the TV broadcast and you're wondering, why is Don Beebe wide open? Why is Andre Reed wide open? And yeah, the radio announcers kind of addressed that where either they're biting on a Reich shoulder fake to the throw down to the running back who's in the flat, and the defensive backs are jumping the route, leaving Reed and or Beebe wide open, or Reich's doing some type of fake to get obviously this aggressive Houston secondary to bite, and they bit often. They bit often in that third quarter, but we're jumping ahead.
So Richmond, in that situation, is that something that you went through a lot, where you're just trying to fake someone out? Because with Marino, again, another veteran quarterback, was that something that you would do often, or just like have to call audibles like that?
Well, the good thing, like when you got a quarterback, like Marino or whatever, a lot of time he recognizes fronts. We could have a run play called, and it's more advantageous for us to check out of that play and go to a pass play, just depending on what the defense giving us, and vice versa. So when you have a quarterback like that can, recognize fronts and then say, okay, I don't like this, I can check out of it. He would check out of plays, and they would typically be more successful. So it's always good to have someone that has that type of knowledge and understanding and really know the offense and really recognize little tendencies of what the defense is doing. And a lot of times you find that out in between series where you come to the sideline and they give you used to give you those sheets. I don't know, it's probably all.
It's an iPad now.
Guys pick up the phone.
Donor age.
Talk to the guys up in the press box and this and that. But that's how the game has evolved. I was kind of laughing when you said it was no internet back then, and yeah. I remember the big, huge satellite dishes and all that. We had one, but it was in the backyard. But it was, it was huge. So it was probably 10 foot in diameter. It was huge, but it's just amazing how much things have changed now. But
also too, like in that first half, they were pretty much making it look. They were building, the biggest star they were building was actually Jim Eddy, the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and again, you're watching this years later, and like, okay, yeah, he's having a good first half. Let's see what happens.
And they're just like all these focuses on him, just like he's how animated he is on the sidelines. And then later on, then things were sort of turning sour a bit. There he is with the chalkboard, or like the magic marker board. I don't know what you even call that now.
The whiteboard.
Yeah, the whiteboard. Yeah.
Whiteboard, yeah. So it just, my first thought was, damn, can't he just do this? On the iPad. But it's so funny how things have changed so much with that. Because Jim Eddy actually, he would lose his job actually because of what happened later on in this game. But
it probably wasn't his fault. I mean, we can address what happens in the second half when we get there, but there were a lot of little things that added up to this comeback.
Mm-hmm. We'll finish this drive. Jeffries is the star, 3 straight receptions to the 33-27, and then into the end zone with, I believe, 11 seconds to play, 28-3 Houston.
Ugly. What, Oilers 255 yards versus the Bills 75 in the first half. I mean, I think if you remember the NFL Films review of this game, and I can't remember what player it was walking up to Warren Moon, sitting on the bench at the end of or wherever it was, and said, "They can't stop you. They can't stop you." And it's, well, yeah. And what happened in the second half? It's just crazy.
So yeah, Buffalo just goes off the field. They're booed. Piles of people probably left. I read about articles where they said that. I was looking through the stands, and apparently a lot of people did leave, from what I read.
Yes, they did.
Come back.
Yeah, no, they tried to come. But the link I sent you yesterday, or I can't remember when I sent you the radio link.
Yeah.
I don't even know who did the snippet from the radio. It's the second half broadcast of the WGR. Van Miller, Greg Brown, and I think Mike Trout were on Mike Pike, someone.
Mike Trout.
And there were the comments, and there are all these Bills fans that were obviously either at the game or they remember the game, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember waves." One guy threw both his shoes over and started climbing the fence, and the security threw his shoes back over, and so he had to get off the fence and get his. And he just kept doing that until they just opened back up the gates and just let everyone else back in, because it was gonna be a dangerous situation when half the stadium wanted to get back in.
I gotta imagine. So Richmond, I'll ask you this: like when you're a road team, and in a big game like that, is not one of the best feelings ever watching all the fans leave and the game's not over?
Well, not only that, it's quiet. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like a home game for you because you've taken the crowd out of the game, and now you can call your offense. You don't have to worry about going on the silent count, because even though that was an outdoor stadium, it got loud to where, you know, that's what we knew we had to use that up there, because the fans, if it gets loud, whatever, but when you get on top of a team and like you said, it's what, 27-3 or whatever at that point, you can just run your offense and really don't have to worry about it. The main thing you want to focus on is to continue to run your offense and don't give them any momentum or let the momentum swing back in their favor. And unfortunately, that's what happened. And then even though everybody didn't get back in there, they know how to get loud up there. I don't – but once the fans get back in the game, if you can't swing that momentum back, it's going to be a long day up there.
Yeah, I think that's the one good thing Todd Christensen mentioned, and I think it was in either the early second half where he commented that Buffalo, along with Mile High and RFK, at the time were probably the toughest stadiums to play in. And yeah, I mean, I obviously Mile High, the Broncos were good then, and that the stadium was just in such a way where the sound would reverberate, and RFK in that round stadium. Yeah, and you could fill it. I mean, back in the day, you were on wait lists for Mile High Stadium and RFK, and it might still be the case for RFK, not so much for Mile High. But yeah, those were the stadiums, and probably alongside Kansas City and the Hoosier Dome when it would fill up.
And in the older stadiums back then, it wasn't as much room. They built them a lot closer where, you know, you have room for the benches and stuff. But now the newer stadiums, they're widening them out where you have a lot more space. So that helps as far as not getting as loud. But some of the stadiums you go into, it's right on top of you. I can remember even playing in the old Cleveland Brown Stadium, and you would get down in the end zone with the dog pound, and it would be deafening where if they went to you couldn't hear. You know, you look at the guy and his mouth is moving, but you can't hear anything. So definitely the way they're building them now, they're putting them out to where it's a little bit more room around the perimeter of the football field. So that helps the visiting team. But back then it was, you weren't going to hear anything. You had to watch the football, and then you got the D lineman jumping, flinching at you because that was legal to try to get guys to jump.
That was legal. Yeah.
It was way tougher back then than it is now.
So second half starts, and I think this is where, if I was a struggling Bills fan, I might have struck it out through halftime, but then first series, and then McDowell pick six, 58 yards.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I remember it was either me or my brother looking at my desk, why are we staying for this game? And then we were, the guy who had a booth, him and his girlfriend, he might have been early 20s. Yeah. He was legal because he had a pitcher of beer on the table, but he was just all talking shit. Yeah, this team sucks. They're just so overrated, blah, blah, blah. You know, typical Bills fan, when things aren't going your way, you just totally trash the team. And so now there's still time left. I'm like, Dad, what the hell are you talking about? But yeah, I was thinking about, Dad, why are we still here? I mean, I know we just bought nachos for my brother to keep him quiet, but no, there's no reason. There's no reason for us to still be here.
Finish the nachos. And aren't you glad you did?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that when things started to turn, that bowling alley bar just lit up.
And it turned almost right away on something unintentional. I can't even describe what happened next. It looked like an onside kick by accident.
And that's one of those errors that I alluded to, like, why are you squib kicking? I mean, El Del Greco was a decent kicker back then. I mean, the camera angle really didn't give you a lot to look at as to whether it was a mishit or an onside kick. But I mean, you just pop it up there and make them go a distance to make them run plays to get to where they need to go.
I couldn't figure it out. The announcers didn't really add much to it. And this also isn't the era of replay after replay after replay after replay. So you pretty much take what you can get. Buffalo's got their best field position on the 50-yard line, and they make something of it. Metzelar starts off with a 23-yard reception, then Andre Reed, then a sack. But they keep it up with Andre Reed, who's just so incredible. Game. 18-yard reception on a 3rd and 15. They're down to the 15. This, I think, was the first time they were in the red zone. And then I think around this time I was thinking, like, where the hell's Thurman Thomas? Because there's Kenneth Davis there. And later on, they would mention that his hip injury from the week before. So now you've got Thomas out. You've got 2 Hall of Famers out. A third one, because I think you and I both agree that Cornelius Bennett should have at least been a finalist at some point.
Yes, we discussed that in our Hall of Fame panel, along with present company not included in the Hall of Fame yet, but that's a whole other story we're going to have to talk about next. Oh, no, come on, Richmond. You know.
Biscuit was a bad man. Yeah, I got a lot of respect for him. Yeah, he's definitely deserving it. And I think a lot of times it shouldn't be this way, but like, say, a team like, say, Buffalo or Dallas back then that had so many great players, they'll put so many in, and then they'll try to find a reason to say, well, this guy's deserving, but we've already put 6 guys in from their team, so we don't need to. And that doesn't make sense to me. If you're deserving, just put the guy in. It doesn't matter, But I think sometimes they use that criteria. So, well, we've already put 6, 7 guys from that team. We need to put somebody else. I'm like, no. If he's deserving, put him in there. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely. Buffalo marches down. Kenneth Davis is now sort of doing everything on the ground, first down, but then a 4th and 2 at the 7. Buffalo correctly goes for it. Davis then gets to the 2, and they rush again. Touchdown, Buffalo. And then that song that Richmond loves. Certainly.
That's Glenn's song. That's not my
Bills
song.
make me want to shout.
I could never get into that song only because I've watched Animal House so many damn times and seen This Day in the Nights do that. And then just hearing this sort of like version that it sounds like something I would do. I
do not want to hear that song, trust me.
Yeah, I should have had it queued up, but I was running behind. I should have had that song queued up knowing Richmond was going to be here. But I'll be nice.
35-10. So I've never heard this term before. Suicide onside kick.
Yeah, was that a thing, Richmond? They call it the suicide onside kick, where you just kick it and you hope the kicker recovers it?
I know what you're talking about. We would practice on stuff like that, but I think that probably was coach. It was just great coaching to me. I mean, when you do it when they don't expect you to do it, and you say, we don't have anything to lose anyway. If we lose the game, but you going down swinging, like you said, they got the last one, and then you get this one here. Hey, the momentum's already swung because you scored. Yeah. Hey, let's just see what happens.
It's just so crazy to me to come up to think, okay, we're going to design a play, and we want to make sure that the smallest guy in the field is the one who's going to get the ball. But it worked.
It worked, and it just had a guy kind of, protect him because, if he's going to get it, the guys on the side of him come block, and if it rolls right, that oblong football sometimes will do crazy things. You expect to go one way or the other, and it just once it goes 10 yards, it's a live ball, and they got it again.
And so Buffalo's got the ball in their own 47, and this is the series that, realistically, I think if you're an Oilers fan, you really want to look back. And
Don Beebe asterisk play after asterisk play.
Yes. back-to-back asterisk play.
Uh-huh.
Gary Gray, I'm sure, is just every day of his life like, I had that ball. I I never touched him. And then he was offside, although I don't think he actually saw that at that point.
Step out of bounds.
Well, the second one, but yeah, we'll go with the first one. So the first one, BB catches the ball. I didn't even write down how many yards it was, but he catches it. No one touches him. Then
Wasn't down by contact. He was just down there.
And then he just quickly gets up, spins the ball out, and Jerry Gray saying, like, goes and gets the ball. Like, no, it was already whistle dead. But looking back, and this one thing they did do a replay on, Gray didn't touch him. That should have been a live ball.
Should have been.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Next play. Was it? No. Gardner rushes, and then play right after. BB gets a 38-yard touchdown pass when he was left all alone, but he went out of bounds.
The foot was close. It was close.
Yeah, the second foot that he went out of bounds was close. The first
it wasn't even close. That was a blown call. I don't know what the line judge was looking at.
Wasn't looking at it because you can see by
yeah, I don't know what he was looking at.
He's looking in that direction. Nobody was, and good on the the broadcast team for catching that. But this was again, Don Beebe either had a horseshoe up his butt or the football gods just said, we like this guy, and bam. I don't think Gray noticed that. He probably learned that after because the way he was looking, I don't think he would have saw him going out of bounds. But
hey, I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only thing that probably sort of saved the minds of the Oilers bench, maybe at that point, is I don't think a lot of them even saw it.
No.
Yeah, replay wasn't as big back then. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm trying to think, did we have a challenge flag in '92? I'm trying to remember
There was. No one would have used it. They would have used it on that one probably.
Yeah, there was no challenge flag back then.
Yeah. Well, typically a lot of times who's ever in the press box, I guess they get a chance to review the play and they'll, signal down to the head coach, hey, we need to, challenge it or whatever. And, the coach makes a decision from that. We didn't have a red flag back then. So
Jack Pardee probably would have liked one.
Oh, definitely. So Buffalo kicks off, and for the first time, Houston goes 3-and-out. And the crowd is going nuts. Even the ones who couldn't get back into the stadium. They are just electric. This is what they've been waiting for, the Buffalo defense to really stand up. And again, I don't think they were poor this whole game. I really don't. I think they were just out-muscled. Now the Oilers they're starting to get a bit discombobulated.
A little special team error here.
Yep.
26-yard punt.
Mm-hmm.
Get great field position on their 41-yard line.
Actually, unless I mistyped, I had 31, but it's possible.
Okay, it might have been.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a 26-yard punt, and once your special teams start going, which will rear its ugly head for the Oilers later on.
Yep. And so Buffalo's got it back. Then we see Thomas firmly on the sidelines, and we learn why, that he's pretty much not coming back. Lofton enters the game. I forgot all about James Lofton. I don't know how I forgot about a Hall of Fame. He's his career.
He was the burner on the team
at
age probably 35, 36 at the time.
19-yard reception, then an offside penalty, screen pass to Davis, 19 yards, and Andre Reed again, 26-yard touchdown pass. The crowd is electric, and you're looking at the Houston sidelines, and they're just like, this is not happening.
Oh, shell shock.
Totally. I can't even think of anything else to – they had – they were already planning their trips to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
How did you not?
When you got that big of a lead and only that much time to make up that point differential, I mean – I don't know. I know. I mean, Richmond, does complacency set in when you have that big of a lead? Or is that killer instinct still in there as a player where, okay, we're going to keep going? What's the mental state of mind when you got that big of a lead?
Well, I think part of it is, like I said, you want to continue to keep the momentum. The momentum swung. What's the likelihood of going for 2 onside kicks and recovering both of them back to back? I don't think most coaches have the guts to say, okay, we're going for an onside kick, get it, and then go again. Unless it's the fourth quarter, you got 3 minutes left. You don't have that's your only option. But this wasn't the case in this game. And then you get the like you said, BB stepped out of bounds. That didn't call. Okay, now you get a bad punt. So it's like now you got to fight your melon and just saying, man, it seems like everything is going right for them and everything's going wrong for us. And then, next thing you know, they're scoring and scoring quick. So now you look at the clock and say, man, do we have enough to hold on to possibly try to, pull this game out? But the fans in it, this and that, the guys that you had down, now they believe, hey, we got a shot. We can actually come win this game. Like you said, Thurman was down, but I think Kelly Davis had a pretty good game that game too. So it was just everything was turning around, and now the fans are like, okay, this is the Buffalo Bills team that we expected. Why did it take y'all so long to wake up? It's like, what do? You're just trying to ride it out. You're trying to do something, but it seems like, and it's not one person from the Oilers. It's like, it's just a domino effect of bad things that happen that you can't recover from. So you just, that's a tough one.
Now, is that on the coaches to say, hey, we still got an 11-point lead here. We still got this, guys. I mean, is coaching leadership, does that play a bigger role when you're trying to keep that team down?
It plays a role, but you even got guys that's, come on, we got to get back out there. As an offense, you're saying, okay, let's get out there, get a drive going, this and that. And maybe even if you don't score a touchdown, try to move the chains, this and that, put together a few first downs, maybe get in position to try to kick a field goal, do something. But when it's just going like this, you try to encourage yourself, but every time you go out there and that doesn't happen, it's harder and harder to kind of overcome that.
Right. I think at this point in the game, Buffalo had 176 yards to Houston's 3, which is just incredible.
In the second half, you mean?
In this quarter. In the one quarter. Yeah.
Right.
Which is just amazing when they flashed that graphic. I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
And this is the first time then they're showing the Oilers sidelines again. They don't know what's happened. And then something bad happens again. Boom, for the first time, because he's been near perfect the entire game. And it goes right to it doesn't go right to Henry Jones, but it was his first.
No, it's a tip. It's a tip that you really can't put that on the quarterback.
No, and I'm not, but it's just the first pass that he threw that wasn't completely on target. So yeah, it was tipped and then tipped right to Henry Jones, who had 8 interceptions that year, led the league. So here's another one. Runs it back to it didn't have to run it back because it was already in Houston territory, but Houston now on the Houston 23. Drake just going for it like almost right away, and another one with Reed, 35-31.
Well, the fourth down call, 4th down and 5 at the 20, when a field goal will get you points, but Marv is just we're going for it.
Yeah, that's right. 4th down and 5 on the Houston 19, and they take a timeout, and that's where again where you think, okay, they're going to kick a field goal, and then they don't.
That's what they were saying in the booth.
Yes.
Like that's the one thing I think Christensen said. Why are you going for the field? You can get the points. You don't want to mess up this momentum.
And they didn't go for 5 yards. They went for the full 19.
The whole thing. Yeah.
35-31. Levy looks like a complete genius at this point. Eddie, who was pretty much, they probably would have said after this game, like, how come he's not a head coach somewhere? And it's, momentum is a fickle mistress, isn't it? And 35-31, only 2 minutes left to play in the third. So there was still 17 minutes.
Whole new ball game.
A completely new ball game. Moon shakes it off to Slaughter. Just again, I love to say that name. To Slaughter. 18 yards to 38. Tally now at this point has been incredible. Oh, I forgot. I made a note here too. Whoever sort of came up with the sign, Daryl's Tally Whackers.
You like that?
No.
It's corny enough for where Canadian like you would like it.
It's a euphemism for a cock. Tallywhacker is what the British people call dicks.
Okay, I am 30 seconds year olds when I learned that fact.
Yeah, so it's basically, here's something like Daryl's dicks. What it is. And just Canadian with the whole British influence, I've heard enough of that. It's like, there's a tallywhacker taking polished off the governor. That's, I know, a terrible British accent. I should never do accents ever again on the show. I will, but I never should.
Oh, okay. So I guess you'll just have to send that to someone and say, hey, you guys know the tallywhackers. Yeah, that might not have been a good thing to put up on a sign.
I don't even know who I'd send that off to. But Tally's incredible in this series here. Forced fumble, which Houston's able to recover, but then another batted ball. Bailey gets that, and it's Houston. They're able to sort of manage, but then another muffed punt. Buffalo's got it on their own 48, end of quarter.
25-yard punt. That's just special teams. Just the little things. I mean, in either the punts, you get anywhere between a 40 to 50-yard punt out of that, and you're adding onto the field position. You're forcing the Bills to have to do more than what they have had to do in this quarter.
But luckily for Houston at this point, Buffalo goes 3-and-out.
Yes.
Good punt by Buffalo. Houston starting at the 9. And then it throws over to Costas and Boomer Esiason, who talks about the biggest comeback. He's basically, like you said, Richmond, although it didn't happen here, he's kind of jinxing it. Well, he said, this would be the biggest comeback in NFL history if it happens. I'm sure that if I was a Bills fan at that point, I would say, like, shut up. Because I do believe in all that jinx. I totally do. And then Boomer.
We go back to it not being on TV. I don't think we heard anything as far as commentary or anything in the bars or whatnot.
But then Boomer referenced that other comeback too.
I don't remember that pop in live when I was watching. We were just so engrossed in the moment, and when you watch a game at a bar, you're kind of paying attention to it, and you're just really focusing on the game. Sometimes the sound is up enough where you can hear anything, but you're just so into it in the atmosphere. I didn't even remember Boomer and Bob chiming in with the historical references to Reich's comeback greatness.
If it's any consolation, Boomer continues for the last 30 years talking about things that nobody remembers.
Sorry, Boomer, if you're listening. It's true. I mean, it is true.
Yeah, he's interesting.
Richmond, you don't have to comment on it.
No,
I don't have to comment on that. We'll keep you out of trouble.
So, Houston, what do they do? Well, they're trying. So another 20-yard gain here by Givens. Needed in that play. It took like 4 Bills, really 5, to take him down. He was just determined. He was not giving up. I loved, watching that, and it also sort of just threw another out on him, just like how powerful and strong that wide receiver core was. When Slaughter's your number 4 guy,
right?
Like that was incredible. I forgot.
No, it was a scary wide receiver core.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, and Givens wasn't a big guy, but he would go across the middle and take the punishment for the safeties or whatever, and so he was, for him to be such a small guy, he was one of the toughest guys that played. But they had a great receiving core, so yeah, he definitely had some weapons to throw the football to.
Yeah, and you're right, and that was the era where safeties could hit.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you were allowed to hit.
Yeah, that's more.
You have to think in a totally different way. That's got to be. And actually, Richmond, I'd like your take on this, because it's got to be a totally different mindset now. Because like when you weren't hitting as much as you were blocking and moving, but how do you? Because the game's rules have changed so quickly to where you can hit, and you're taught in college, and then your first few years in pro, where you can hit. Now all of a sudden, it can change just like that.
Yeah, well, I thought the rules evolved even like for say cornerbacks or whatever. It used to go, it was a bump and run. They would play bump, and a lot of times you would have defensive backs that was really aggressive, and they would jam the receiver and run him out of bounds. And if he got out of bounds, he was dead for that play. So he could take They could take a play out, or even a defensive end, like back then, even if the quarterback had threw the ball, if he was like a step or two close enough, he could still get a hit on the quarterback. And it's not necessarily you get the sack, but if you keep getting to, the quarterback, keep hitting him, a lot of times they're going to get happy feet. So, you had that element of it. And then, like you said, with Givens, this and that, going across the middle, whether you caught the ball or you didn't catch the ball, he was going to get hit. So it was an intimidation factor that a lot of times that, rather than looking for the ball, you'd be trying to figure out where's the safety at, or this and that, to try to get down and absorb that hit. So the game has changed tremendously. And I think it's more to try to keep the offenses going. But now with the salaries and stuff now, especially with the quarterbacks and stuff, they want to protect their investment. They can't afford to lose a guy when you're paying him $30, $40 million a year. That's a huge hit to your cap. And then, trying to bring somebody else in that, normally it's not going to be on that same tier or level. That's tough. So they really have changed the rules dramatically to where, they protect the quarterback, stuff like that.
Yeah, and something like that's going to come up shortly. Jeffries is doing well. Gets another reception to the Buffalo 40. At this point, I guess this is a reverse jinx, if you want to call it that. The commentators are mentioning how Odoms is being picked on. And seemingly in the next play, they're going for it in the end zone. And Odoms, who is the smaller man, uses actually his lack of size advantage on this play to stop that. Comes in from inside of Jeffries, gets the ball out at the last minute. And from there on in, Odoms was pretty much the star of the rest of the game defensively, I thought.
Oh yeah, he held his own.
Yeah. But I mean, just it's almost like he had this subliminal thing, like, yeah, they're dumping on you in the booth there. Oh yeah, and bam! If there's
Again, football gods smiling down on Nate.
Absolutely. And then, so they went for that. Then it was sacked by Jeff Wright. Took off his helmet, and all I could remember seeing that goofy mustache that I could grow when I was 13. Nice facial hair there, Jeff. Just I wanted to point that out.
But that's what he was known for. I think he had that mustache all through his Bills career.
Later on, after he got his second sack, then they just did that still shot. And there he is with the grown-out flat top, the shaved sides, and then there's the mullet and that mustache.
Yeah, that was Jeff's look back in the day.
Like, how does that?
Are you going to go up to him and tell him what you think of that look, Kirk?
No. I'm going to
exactly.
I'm going to do this from the cover of the internet and hiding in Barbados.
Jeff, if you're listening, you're a great football player.
But your facial hair wasn't on point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what was the big play was the Bruce Smith hit.
Right.
Elton Bailey interception.
Yeah, which is why I was going to say, like, that was sure going to come up because that looked to me like it was roughing the passer. Roughing the passer now is certainly a lot different, but it was sort of like the drag down at the end.
It was borderline.
Well,
as I sport the Bills hat,
okay.
It was borderline.
From a 2021 lens, I guess it's so totally not borderline.
Oh yeah, from a 2021 lens.
Yeah.
He might get a call from the commissioner with that hit. But in 1992-93, it was borderline. But yeah, the refs got to do what the refs got to do.
Negated the interception, so now now it just swings again. Houston's got the ball on the Buffalo 31. Screen to White. Wright, that's where Wright got a second sack, and I noticed his wonderful lettuce. That. Why I made notes of that, I don't know, but I did.
Because it stood out to you.
It just stood out.
I mean, when we watch these things, and sadly, they're getting to be many, many, many years ago.
Yeah.
You don't remember these things, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right, that happened, and ooh yeah, that happened, and in the case of Battle of the Network Stars, it's like, ooh, that happened. But yeah, it's amazing how time changes perspective on all these events that we're watching.
So then, Richmond, before the season, do they sort of like take a picture of you and just say, okay, well, that's probably going to be used in case your name gets called?
Yeah, you take photo shots, still shots, or whatever, and a lot of times you see back in the day where, they might put off 5 offensive linemen up, and the other ones might be the quarterback and then the receivers or whatever. So you would always do that before the season started. Yeah. And a lot of times back then, like say if a guy got traded, he might have, say if he got traded from the Jets to the Dolphins, you could tell he had his Jets uniform, and they would just put their picture in there because you would take a new one. But yeah, that was back in the day right there.
I always wondered what it would be like for someone, because now they'll sort of like do that 5-second GIF of them sort of like maybe holding up a ball, So and now Nate Odom's like I would sort of do like everything to get myself noticed. But then again, I'm 5'7", so there really wasn't a whole lot of call for me to have that opportunity.
You were often overlooked?
And justifiably so. When it comes to that, I found my niche talking about other people's greatness, and I'm good at that.
That you are.
That I am. But the drive for Houston stalls, but they're on the board. Field goal, 38-31. Oh, sorry. No,
this was botched. This was another.
Did I fast forward? Oh yeah, I did.
Mishap.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of something else. 32-yard field goal attempt, fumbled by the holder, the punter.
Yeah. And again, the replays not being what they were mentioned something before, and I picked up in this again the Van Miller radio broadcast where they deemed whoever picked it up down by contact, so it wasn't a legitimate fumble that could be forwarded.
Yeah.
Which looking back, and I couldn't pick it up on it just because, again, 1992, 93 replays just weren't what they were. But that was the story that the refs were selling, and I guess as a Bills fan, we had to deal with it versus taking it all the way back into Houston territory.
Yeah, no,
special teams era again between the punts, the 20-yard punts, and now the box snap and didn't even get it. An attempt at the that just adds up to the little things that bring us to where we are now in this game.
So 7 minutes left to play. Buffalo's on their own 24. Davis with another big run, 35 yards on a 3rd and 4 play. So but just still a ballsy play just to call a run on a 3rd and 4, I think, at that point.
Well, you mentioned it, and Kelly will admit this often, that, the K-gun got a lot of the credit. Mm-hmm. But this was a running offense. I mean, it's centered around Thurman Thomas and what he could do between tackles, what he can do coming out of the backfield. I mean, the run really did set the tone for probably 80% of what the Bills did back in the day.
Yeah, and Reed gets, but also, I guess where I was going with that, because it wasn't Thomas, it was Davis. So,
and again, being the Buffalo fan that I am, I mean, there was a drop-off, but all of Bills Nation had faith in Kenny Davis.
Okay. Someone who I'd never had to question your faith in, Reed, another first down into the red zone at the 17-yard, and then bang, it's Reed again.
Hall of Famer.
Yes. Buffalo takes the lead for the first time in this game with 3 minutes and 8 seconds to go.
And Rich Stadium's going nuts.
If Houston were to have just sort of folded at that point, it'd be hard to blame them, but they didn't. So they're playing in the short game that Richmond was sort of talking about earlier. So just 2 quick passes. Givens gets a first down to their own 40. They're working the lines beautifully. Slaughter gets out of bounds at the 49. Givens then to the Buffalo 41, same thing. False start pushes him back 5 yards. Slaughter out of bounds to Buffalo 37. We got the 2-minute warning. Go ahead.
Now, when you're watching this, do you get the feel that they're playing for the field goal?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's probably another mistake, where you're playing for the field goal, which means you're hoping to get into overtime, which means you're hoping for the coin toss to benefit you.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're playing like a weaker team, I think, in that, which is sort of
they lost their swagger.
Yes,
it's all gone.
Mm-hmm. Richmond, you get the feeling that's what they were doing too, like because they were playing.
They played it safe, yeah. I mean, you play it safe, and like you said, and what you got to look at, they just were in position to score a field goal, botched that. So a lot of times you don't want to be too aggressive because you don't want to throw a pick or whatever. So, you're eating up time to where you can say, okay, either we're going to either tie the game up or it's going to be over. But they didn't want to leave too much time, I believe, on the clock because of the way Buffalo's offense was clicking at the time to say, okay, if we go down here and score too quick, they get the ball back, they run down, get in field goal position, do it again, and probably say that we'll take our chances in overtime. And I think when you're the visiting team, you get to call a coin toss. So I guess, they just say, if we can get this, they're just trying to get something going because the momentum had left since maybe early third quarter, the end of the second quarter. So if you can get anything positive going now, because it's been one thing after another, and they're just trying to get something positive, I think. So I think that's probably why they went for the field goal. Almost looked like they were playing for it.
Yeah, which they could have gone for, but I guess I was sort of playing in their heads too. The botch from Montgomery. So because it's 4th and 4, it would be 51-yard attempt. They elect to go for it instead of kick the field goal, which is probably the smarter thing to do anyway at a minute 39 because Buffalo's going to get the ball back. So Slaughter gets a pass 16 yards, then White rushes. Moon can't get anything going, but then he manages to get a 3-yard gain out of that. 8 yards to go, but it's late. It's 4th down. Del Greco, easy field goal, puts it right through. Actually, not right through, but no, either way, it's there. Old Spice is going to be, they remind us, Old Spice is going to have the post-game show with Bob, with Boomer, with Will McDonough, and O.J. Simpson, who I don't think will be joining them much longer.
Yeah, when was the OJ thing? Was that 1990? Okay, so yeah, he had a couple years left on the NBC studio.
I thought it was actually earlier than that, but yeah. If the glove fits, you must stay and sit and watch the rest of it. No.
Oh boy, how are we not canceled yet?
Well, I guess when you're self-owned.
This is true.
Right.
All right, so yeah, Buffalo doesn't do anything. And then we're headed to overtime.
38-38. Houston wins the coin toss. So at this point, so you're watching this, Glenn. It's sudden death. I like sort of the changes they've made now.
Absolutely.
Overtime, but then I mean, like if you won the coin toss, I think it was like a 68% chance you're winning that.
Oh yeah, it was high, and you're thinking, oh shit, can we stop Warren Moon again? Because that's all you've done this. I mean, you think the levy's got to break. He's got to hit something.
Right.
I mean, you can't – I mean, what he did in the first half and then just nothing in the third quarter, picked himself up, brushed himself off, and got some points in the fourth quarter to get it into overtime. Mm-hmm. You're thinking, okay, can we do this? Mm-hmm. And, yeah, we're on the edge of our seats.
And then Moon was stopped. 2 quick passes to Duncan for 4 yards, then 3 yards, and then Nate Odoms.
Yep.
Not
reverse jinx.
Not just the interception at the 35, then a face mask penalty on top of that for another 15. Bang. Like, that's got to be a killer. I can't grabbing the mask. I mean, you know you're going to get a penalty for it, but I mean, to that point, you're just so desperate. You're doing everything to take someone down. I would think that's the mentality, Mr. Webb.
Yeah, I think a lot of time it's inadvertently. You're just trying to make a tackle, and if you reach out, like you'll see guys grab it, but if you do grab it, it's gonna get called. But a lot of times you're just trying to make a play and stop. It's better to get the penalty than to just say, oh, I'm not going to do that, and then the guy scores or whatever. So I think it's just at the time somebody's trying to make a play, and sometimes you reach for something and you end up grabbing a face mask, and, it's just part of the game. So, yeah, that's the way I look at it.
I guess at that point, once your hand's already up there, I mean, like the mental thing of, okay, well, I'm going to bring it down to avoid that, but I got to get him down first. There's just so many things going through your head, I have to imagine.
Right. It's not like you say, okay, I'm going to just hold it. Yeah. Sometimes you're trying to make that tackle. If you think you got to grasp with your other hand or something, then maybe you can, it's inadvertent and you can bring it down. But if this guy's got a head of steam and you don't think you're going to hold on, you're going to do whatever you can to try to get the guy down. So it's not like you're trying to injure the person. It's just You're just trying to make a play.
Buffalo just.
And on that play, there may or may not have been a holding on Daryl Talley that was or wasn't called that they could have called. But again, it is what it is. And as a Bills fan, I'm glad the referees didn't see that holding on Daryl Talley.
So yeah, the Tallywhackers won. Two quick plays. Buffalo sets up for because they got the good position, goes for the field goal on third down. Right call to do. 32-yard, straight, perfect. Game over.
Incredible.
Absolutely
incredible.
Greatest comeback maybe in all of sports. Definitely mathematically still the biggest one in all of football. The highlight of Bills Nation, the aftermath. Houston wouldn't be Houston much longer.
No,
yeah.
No, they would pick up and move.
Shortly, a few years after, they had an interesting season. After because Eddie was fired, Buddy Ryan comes in, which I read it.
Evan Gilbride's best friend.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened.
It did. Actually, is that the only time that coordinators have ever gone at it that we know about?
I don't know. Richmond, have you ever, I mean, and don't divulge names or anything, but have you ever, at any level of football, your college career, your NFL career, has it gotten that heated where coaches have gotten at it?
Not where everybody can see it, where, the nation's – I've never seen it that bad where you actually go punch a guy, on the sideline. But, I think Buddy Ryan coached me at the Senior Bowl when I was coming out, so I knew him, and then I knew guys that played for him at Philadelphia and even at I think he was at Arizona at one time too. Maybe his last stop. But he was just a defensive guy, and that's all he cared about. And I can't remember who they were playing, but I remember it was right before half or something, and the Oilers did something, and I guess he didn't agree with. They were trying to be too aggressive rather than just run the clock out, and he got mad, went down there and took a swing at Gilbride, and I was like, I think everybody was like just kind of shocked. It was like they had to separate him. I was like, oh no, this isn't good. So that one sticks out. I don't really recall two other guys getting into it anywhere near close to that. If you ask anybody about coaches getting into it, about ready to fight, that's the first thing that's going to come to mind is that right there.
Insane. Buffalo would go on to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, they would lose to Dallas, but they would make it again the following years, becoming first and still to date the only team ever to make it to the Super Bowl 4 straight years. Yeah, they didn't win, but no one's ever done that, and that is phenomenal.
Now, after the Houston comeback, who did the Bills end up playing in that AFC Championship game?
They would have went to Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think. Wouldn't it? Let's see. I think they played Pittsburgh.
Did they play Pittsburgh the following week?
I'll take a look at it because I could have sworn it said it was Pittsburgh, but I could be mistaken.
Because I think Frank Reich had to play the next game.
Yeah, Reich played the next game, and Kelly played. Didn't he play against you guys, Richmond, in the AFC Championship that year?
That was in '92.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 92 season, maybe 93. But yeah, I remember we had the AFC East. Game was in Miami, and they beat us there. I do remember that, but I'm not for sure if that's the same year.
Yeah, Reich started that Pittsburgh game, and then Kelly came back.
Okay. And then Bennett was back too.
Yes.
And that is the aftermath. That is. So here's my question for both of you. When you look on this on Wikipedia, it says the comeback or the choke. Which is it? Is it a comeback or is it a choke or is it a combination thereof?
Depends on the fan base.
Well, all right, we know your fan base.
Yeah, I mean it's the greatest comeback in NFL history from the Buffalo Bills standpoint. That's what it is. That's what it has always been. And yeah, you're right. I never actually looked it up on Wikipedia until this week.
Mhm.
And yeah, I saw the choke. I'm like, well, I never thought about it that way. But yeah, I guess. But I mean, who forced the Oilers to give it up? I mean, there were plays there that were there to be made, and what some people call chokes, and we addressed it, the special teams errors,
Right.
the squib kick that shouldn't have been a squib kick. I don't know why they were squib kicking, the 2 punts, the botched field goal. I mean, it just, as well as it went, and this happens in sports, this happens in life, as well as it went in the first half, it went just as bad in the second half.
And to say like Moon choked, Warren Moon didn't choke.
No, there was a lot of things that went wrong in that game.
And Warren Moon was fantastic.
No, he had 360 some odd yards.
Yeah. And just a couple bad throws, and like a lot of quarterbacks, because they're throwing a lot more now, have a lot more than a couple bad throws in a game. Like
that's going to happen. That's human nature.
Mhm.
Like you said, just like Glenn said, it just depends on the fan base or whatever. You get that far up on a team, you don't expect the team to come back and beat you, and vice versa for Buffalo Bills fan. It's the greatest comeback. You won't be a part of that. That's history. So it just decide which side of the coin you're on. But I never looked at it as a choke. I always looked at it as the greatest comeback, because it's normally what you hear when they describe that game, because it had never been done. That margin of victory, the comeback from that margin had never been done, which was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I tend to agree with both of you. I don't really look at this as a choke, especially looking at everything that was sort of played out. If your best player isn't choking, how is it a choke?
Exactly. There's a lot of blame to go around, and I don't think a lot of it could be put on Warren Moon's shoulders.
No,
He did everything he could.
Yeah, Warren Moon was, growing up as a little kid, because he was well, it's not the Eskimos anymore. It's the Edmonton Elks. They just changed that.
Did they have to change it for politically correct reasons?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, before I go into that, I will say that the only person I ever knew who actually who was Inuit, she lived in Edmonton, and her Twitter handle, I think she took it down, was the Edmonton Eskimo girl.
So she liked it.
I guess so.
And now she can't be the Edmonton Eskimo girl anymore. Well, technically she is, but I'm assuming she was an Eskimos fan. And she doesn't want to be an elk girl, because that's a whole other.
Well, there are a lot of elk running wild in Alberta, so I don't think you really want to say that you're an elk girl. You have a whole bunch of connotations living out there. But yeah, they're the Edmonton Elks now. But I remember as a kid, because then with the TV available, there was a lot more CFL available. So up until maybe 12 or 13, I was watching more CFL. So Warren Moon to me was just like, I thought for the first 10 years of my life he was Canadian. I didn't know. That's what I thought. Because he was like the best player in all of Canada. 5 straight Grey Cups. Actually, Richmond, there's another question here for you. What is the perceived drop? Obviously, it's a big drop off, from the NFL to the CFL. But when you're sort of thinking of talents in the CFL, do you ever think of, well, none of them can really play here, or it's just a select few? Or like, how did you sort of like perceive?
No, there's several guys that I know that I've played with that played in Canada and then made the transition. I think some guys sometimes need a little bit more time to develop. And, whereas Moon, a lot of times, if you were a quarterback and you were black, a lot of times they would try to move you to receiver or defensive back or something like that. But he went over there and proved that he was, one of the best quarterbacks. And then, Houston signs him, and he continues doing what he did in Canada in the NFL. So a lot of times guys use it as a developmental league, and the rules are a little bit different, but it's football, and they come over and have success. So it's just a stepping stone sometimes in NFL. That's the way I looked at it.
And as we're recording this, I just read that the USFL might be back in business. So
I heard that on the AM radio this morning.
yeah,
Spring football.
more football can only be sort of good for the development of players, because I think there was a big loss when NFL Europe went under.
Yeah, and like I said, you're not trying to compete with NFL, but even the league they had last year, that was doing pretty well until COVID shut it down. And I think people just like football, and it's kind of a good way to fill it where, you can't have the NFL, but if it's good enough and level of competition is good enough to where you get people to watch it, I think that's a great thing.
Well, I guess this puts a bow at the end of episode 3. Richmond, thanks for coming on the show with Glenn and I. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we can have you back again if we didn't run you off with my talking of tallywhackers.
No, just don't say that in Buffalo. Just a word of advice: don't say that in Buffalo. That's all I can tell you. Trust me, don't do that.
Well, Kirk owes me a beer, so he'll be coming here at some point in the probably distant future. But yeah, I hope he behaves.
Well, we said we would go to a Sabres game, right? So I know I owe you some beer. I'm going to be having some too. So I hope that Buffalo's greatest triathlete will make sure that I'm protected, but probably not.
Absolutely.
No.
Let's wrap this thing up.
All right. Thank you all, and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. I'll holler at you a little bit later. It was fun.
All right. Thanks so much.